Hi there. So today I want to talk about a practice that has been foundational in my own alchemical journey, my own efforts towards completing the great work. And that practice is called keeping an alchemical journal. So what makes it an alchemical journal and not just a regular journal? Great question. The answer is that an alchemical journal is all about making the unconscious conscious. It's about coming into contact and dialogue with our dreams, with a rich symbol set that's traditional. It's about staying in touch with our intentions, noticing our habits, working towards better habits, working towards being intentional and decisive each day about what we plan to do. Basically, it entails uniting our will, and that's a deep topic unto itself, but what we're doing is we're becoming aware of what's going on with us at every level, and we're making decisions with all of that information in play. And it's a practice of just not falling into the same robotic ruts, patterns, conditioning that we might otherwise be subject to if we were not doing this work of actively staying in touch with what's going on in our dreams, what's going on in divination, what's going on in, our habits and what kind of decisions are we making. So overall, the practice just brings us into deeper awareness, deeper unity, deeper focus and purpose. And it gives us a sense of continuity, a way of staying in touch with ourselves across time. So what exactly is involved in keeping an alchemical journal? Well, there's a morning practice element to it and an evening practice element to it. And I'm going to give an overview of both. And as I give this overview, it may sound like a lot, but it actually isn't. It takes me about 10 or 15 minutes each morning and each evening to do this. And also, as I go over the elements in an alchemical journal practice, you may have some questions. You may be like, what's that about? Why are you doing that? And I promise I will get to all of those in depth. I will cover answers to all possible questions associated with this practice because I believe it is so important. But for now, I'm just sort of going to give you an overview of what the practice entails based on how I do it each day. And then I will get to discussing all the finer points of it. Okay, so first thing, wake up in the morning, I get my coffee, I open my journal, I write the date. Next, I shuffle my tarot deck. So I use the Thoth tarot deck designed by Aleister Crowley and painted by Lady Frida Harris. And why I use the Thoth deck is a whole discussion unto itself, but I do. So I choose, I shuffle the cards. I say, Hermes, Thoth, reveal to me what today brings. And then I pull a card. Whatever that card is, I take a look at it. I note it down. Then I leave some blank space. Because later on in the evening, I'm going to be making notes about what I experienced in relation to the tarot card. So I'm going to leave some room for those notes. Next, I take a look at the astrology of the day. So I do this using an app called Time Passages, which is available for iPhone. I don't think it's available for Android. But there are other astrology apps out there, and you can also look at astro.com to see the astrology of the day. But basically, I just want to make notes about what's going on in the heavens, right? Because a basic thing in Hermeticism, in alchemy, is as above, so below. So I need to be aware of what the above is. So at the very least, I like to take a note of what sign the sun is in and what sign the moon is in. And, that tells me the phase of the moon. So, for example, today the sun is in Cancer and the moon is in Cancer. It's a new moon. They're in the same sign. They're together. So I make note of that. And I'm fairly well versed in astrology in general, so I make a note of other transits going on, other aspects going on. But for somebody who's not well versed in astrology, I would just simply say, make an effort to notice the position by sign of the sun and the moon and what phase the moon is in. And again, then I leave blank space because later on I'm going to be noticing, recording what came up in relation to the astrology of the day. Next, I go ahead and I record my dreams. So sometimes if it seems like I won't be able to record my dreams unless I get them all out first, then I will write them down first and then do the tarot and the astrology. Otherwise, I do it in this order. So I just write down my dreams as best I can remember them. And honestly, lately, my recall is not that great. I have a little baby. She wakes up multiple times a night, so I wake up. So in that process, I tend to lose some of my dream recall. I do find that taking reishi mushrooms before bed helps. Reishi is generally recognized to be safe and helpful on all levels, so I do suggest that, although always consult with a herbalist or medical professional about that, because obviously I'm not one. So there's supplements that can help you remember your dreams better. Another one is mugwort, although mugwort definitely has contraindications for pregnant women, for example. But there's some other herbs and things that you can do to help improve dream recall. Dream recall is very important because, well, sort of like Sigmund Freud said, dreams are the royal road to the unconscious. So we do want to collect as much as we can from our dream memories. So after writing down my dreams, next I turn myself to the question of, what do I want to accomplish today? And what are the teeny tiny next physical actions that I am going to take towards my goals today? So obviously this involves having some sense of an aim, of a purpose for my day. So I have to reflect on that. And then I'm asking myself to break it down into a teeny tiny next physical action. And this idea comes from Getting Things Done by David Allen, the great productivity Bible of the 1990s, which I still love. So an example of this would be if I have a project that's really big, like write a new book. Okay, then I have to think, what is my very first teeny tiny action in the physical world towards making that project happen? Well, let's see. Probably I would need to open my notebook and brainstorm 10 ideas for the book topic itself, and then feel into what felt most resonant. So that's one idea for a next action. So I could write that down as my next action today for what I'm going to do towards writing my next book. I could also come up with more associated next actions. So I could write something like, call up one of my friends and brainstorm with them, or call up my publisher and ask her what she thinks would be good for me to write about. And doing these sort of information gathering, little next actions towards this big, giant overall project of writing a book. Likewise, something more quotidian, let's say my aim today is to clean out my closets, to get all Marie Kondo with it and get rid of my extra clothes. Okay, so the very teeny tiny next physical action there would be to go into the kitchen, grab some trash bags, go upstairs, open my closet, start tossing what does not give me joy. So I would write that down. Grab trash bags, go up to closet. Very, very teeny tiniest next physical action. Why do this? Well, there's something about the brain, again, sort of as we mentioned, that's kind of robotic. That's a little bit like a computer program. So if I don't break things down into their next teeny tiny physical action, there's something about it that, like, when I look at clean my closet on a to-do list, it's just like, oh, this big amorphous blob of like, how do I, where do I, There's like some thinking that hasn't been done. So the practice here is to do some thinking on the front end, to visualize myself in the future, today, cleaning this closet, and to really think into, okay, what's the very first thing that I'm going to have to do towards making this outcome happen? And then I write that down. And it's a way of working with my little robot monkey brain and taking away some ambiguity and taking away some vagueness and wondering, and just being like, this is the next teeny tiny thing we're going to do. Okay, so that right there is the basic morning alchemical journal practice. We're pulling a tarot card. Well, first, we're recording the date, because you want to know the date when you go back and look. So we're recording the date. We are pulling a tarot card of the day and recording it. We are making note of the astrology of the day. We are writing down our dreams. Next, we are deciding what we want to accomplish that day, and making some notes of that, and making notes of the next teeny tiny physical actions that go into making that outcome happen. Okay, so that is the morning alchemical journal practice. Next, we will get into discussing the evening alchemical journal practice. Okay, so next, the evening alchemical journal practice. So I like to do this right while I'm winding down, getting ready for bed, doing my stretches. Take out my journal, open it up to the page that I wrote on in the morning, and I make notes in relation to the tarot card of the day and the astrological weather of the day. So I ask myself, okay, what in my experience rhymes with the tarot card or with the astrological weather? So, for example, the other day I pulled the Ace of Wands, which is all about big, creative fire energy. And as it happened, that day I was coming up with the idea for and planning this series that I am doing right here, right now. So on that day, I made notes. I had this creative inspiration in connection to this series. That was my fiery wands, Ace of Wands experience that day. Obviously, there's a lot of nuances with noticing things in regards to tarot cards, and we can talk a lot more about that. But you can start just by referring to a reference book. So for the Thoth Tarot, I really like Understanding Aleister Crowley's Thoth Tarot by Lon Milo Duquette, and also Mirrors of the Soul. And the author of that later one is escaping me right now, but those two reference books for the Thoth Tarot I really like. And then, of course, there's also the little white book that comes with the deck itself. I think there's no shame in referring to those references. And so noticing that, feeling into the card itself, what does it seem to be representing? The Ace of Wands is very fiery and very phallic and turned on. So where was I fiery and phallic and turned on in my life today? And then making notes about that. Likewise, looking at the astrological energy, something that I've been noticing lately is that when the moon is waning, I have less energy. So I would make a note about that. I might make a note about my menstrual cycle in relation to the moon cycle. I might make a note about any transits. Again, transits are sort of a more advanced astrological thing, but if you know about them and if you're aware of what transits you're going through, right now I have Saturn opposing my natal moon, and that is not comfortable at all. So I've been making some notes about that and what's coming up in relation to that. And I might even make some connections to what went on in the day and what I recorded in my dream, because often dreams have a prophetic element in them, and there will be something that I dreamt of the night before that had something to do with my day that day. There's a lot of weird time stuff with dreams that we can also talk about, because they tend to be prophetic, and also they're about the past, and also they're tricky things, dreams. But anyways, I will make notes if I notice anything. So that's the first thing, is just noticing and recording those rhymes. Next, I write in response to this question: what is the most profound thought or experience that I had today? So sometimes I'll be like, oh man, I didn't think of anything profound today, and nothing profound happened. But I just always kind of force myself to dig deep. And even if I didn't have an original profound thought today, even if it was something that somebody else said or that I read somewhere or heard somewhere, I will make a note of that. And of course, if I did happen to have a deep thought of my own, I will make a note of that. And this is a way of really priming ourselves to always be on the lookout for deeper ways of understanding ourselves in the world, really eliciting, asking this question over and over again: what's the most profound, amazing thing that I thought about or heard about or experienced today? That tunes us into the most profound. So good priming there. And also recording our most profound thought helps us over time. When we look back at our journal, we will have direct access to, okay, well, this was what I felt was most important that I thought about on this day. And there it is. It's right nicely highlighted for me. Okay, next I write in response to the question: what did I do to weaken a draining habit today? So by draining habit, I mean any habit that takes away from your energy, your focus, your, feeling great in life as you work towards your purpose. So I don't like to call it a bad habit, because I don't think that kind of moralizing is necessary, but I can call it what it is. It's a draining habit. So for example, I made the lousy decision to start smoking cigarettes when I was 17. I was on heroin at the time, so my logic was not great during that era. And I have periodically been in a dance with nicotine since then. So right now, knock on wood, I've been quit from nicotine for a good while. And I will make a note of that. I abstained from nicotine today. I'll also make a note, like right now I'm working on a challenge of no controlling and no complaining behavior. So I'll make a note: I succeeded in that today, yay. Or I tried, and I'll write about that. So just, again, this is another priming question that helps me stay focused on what am I doing to weaken these habits that don't help me. So I avoided my friends who smoke today. Bless them, I love them. I can't hang out with them right now. Or I took some Lobelia tincture. That's a tincture that helps with nicotine addiction. Or I used chewing gum instead. And then there's the no controlling, no complaining. How did I weaken that habit? Well, I noticed that the house was messy and I really felt like complaining to my husband about it, but I was just like, I was gonna hold it in and just focus on what I'm grateful for and what I love instead. And probably the house being messy won't kill me. So things like that. Next, I write about what do I want to do tomorrow to move closer towards my goals, towards my aims. So this is something that I will then refine the next day when I'm asking myself, what are the teeny tiny next actions that I can do in relation to these? So let's say I'm thinking like, okay, well, tomorrow, actually, the thing that I want to do most towards my aims is just relax. That will help me the most. So tomorrow, my goal is to relax and have fun. And then I might think of some activities that are fun and relaxing. Or let's say tomorrow my goal is to write an article for a magazine that has invited me to submit. So I will write that down. and that serves my larger goal of getting my message out into the world, etc., etc. So, think about just what do you want to do tomorrow? And it doesn't have to be a whole lot of work. It could just be having fun, but whatever it is, just make a note. So then finally, can't forget this, then I update my habit grid. So a habit grid is just sort of a page in my journal where I have a list of the dates of the month. So, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8. And then across the top, I have 4 or 5 habits that I am working on cultivating. So it might be, meditation, it might be taking my vitamins, it might be, running each day, or doing a certain kind of ritual. Whatever it is that I'm working on cultivating as a daily habit, I want to go open up to that habit grid page and make little dots. So, okay, well, today I took my vitamins, but I didn't run, so I don't get a dot for running, but I get a dot for taking my vitamins, and I get a dot for meditating, and I get a dot for no controlling, no complaining. But I forgot to do the ritual that I'm working on today, so I don't get a dot for that. So it's a way of keeping, being honest with oneself, being real with oneself, and keeping track over time, because, you do this over the course of a month, and then you can look at your page and be like, okay, well, here's the habits that I've been really good at keeping up with, and here's the ones that I'm still having some challenges with. So if these habits are still important to me to cultivate, I may want to rethink how I'm approaching them. Maybe I need to, tie them into something else that I already automatically do. So, for example, I've had a really hard time. I've wanted to do a podcast for a while. I haven't been able to get myself to do it. I decided, hey, what the heck? I will just do one on my morning walks. So yeah, there's going to be car noises and lawnmower sounds sometimes, and the neighbor's dog. But you know what? It's going to be better than nothing. So that's what I'm doing. I'm doing this on my morning walks. And here we are. And that only came after a long time of looking at my habit grids and being like, did not podcast today. No siree, I did not do that. So then I had to ask myself, okay, what do I already always do that I can combine this with to make it easier for me to actually make it happen? And now it's happening. So yay. Okay, so that is the evening Alchemical Journal practice. And in our next segment, we will be talking some more about overall why do this. Okay, so let's talk a little bit more about why do this weird thing of keeping an alchemical journal. So one of the things that happens with this practice is that it really puts me into ongoing relationship with what the larger part of myself thinks and feels is going on. Because I know my ego's version of what's going on, right? I know what I think about things, but there's the divine teacher inside of me that speaks through my dreams and that speaks through contact with a traditional symbol set, i.e. the tarot. And this is a daily practice of asking that part of myself what's going on. So I think the dreams in themselves are an amazing way to do this. Part of the problem with dreams is that we can't always remember them, right? So the tarot practice, in some ways, is like a backup to the dreams, but in another way, the daily tarot card practice is in itself an amazing and really deep way of coming into deeper and deeper contact with that inner teacher via the tradition, this set of symbols that has a larger resonance outside of myself. In some ways, we could say, well, it definitely is. It's connected to what Carl Jung would call the collective unconscious, which he also at times called the objective psyche. So there are these symbols that have a reality and an existence beyond my ego opinion, for example. And I'll give you a notion of one way that happens. So I'm pretty ambitious. I work a lot. And there's a part of me that feels like this compulsion with it. It's like, oh, I have to, I must, I have to. And to my ego, that's completely normal and that's completely sensible. But maybe for a week, almost every day in a row, I pull the 10 of Wands, which in the Thoth deck is titled oppression. And it means, being overworked, overburdened, killing one's creativity with a sense of obligation and compulsion. And so when I keep pulling that card day after day, it's like a deeper part of myself is telling me, like, hey, Carolyn, your ego thinks it's normal to work this way and feel all of this bondage and compulsion around it. But actually, it's not. It's not normal. It's not healthy. It's called oppression, Carolyn. You are oppressing yourself. So that's, then that makes me re-examine, like, what are my attitudes towards work? What is this doing to my creativity? What is this doing to my joy in life and my family relationships? It's like I'm getting this commentary, from the deeper part of myself that's saying, oppression. So that's, one little way, and that's one of the reasons why I love the Thoth deck, although I can get into a whole lot of reasons why I love the Thoth deck. But I love it in part because it's so unsparing. It really, kind of tells it like it is. So that's something that I love. And of course, likewise, as we mentioned, the inner teacher who speaks through dreams also tends to have a counterbalancing or a complementary attitude that corrects the ego's attitude. So staying in touch with my dreams puts me into contact with that. And later, when we get into talking about dream interpretation, you'll see I have plenty to say about exactly how that works. So those two things, okay. And then, as we mentioned, staying in touch with the astrological weather, the as above, so below. What's going on in the as above? There's a whole lot to be said about astrology, just like there is a whole lot to be said about tarot and dreams. But one beginning thing that we could say about it is astrology is the art of being in the, of having right timing, of being in touch with what the larger tides and dances of time, archetypes, energies are doing, so that we can be in some sort of conscious, deliberate relationship with them instead of just being bowled over by them, steamrolled by them constantly. So, for example, the pandemic that started in January, lots of astrologers have talked about how that's been connected to a Saturn-Pluto conjunction that happened in January 2020. And likewise, the Saturn-Pluto conjunction happened around the time of World War I and in connection with the flu pandemic that happened then, that killed 2 million people around the world. And for me, it just kind of helps to know that. It helps to know, hey, there's this thing that's happening in the heavens. And it happens every so often. And when it happens, things really suck for about 2 to 5 years. It helps me to not be on edge all the time and be like, when are things going to get better? When are things going to get better? Well, I don't know. Astrologically, they're probably not going to get better for at least 2 more years, because that's the intensity of a Saturn-Pluto conjunction. So it just helps me be more in harmony with time. And likewise, the basic version of the practice, just staying aware of the position of the sun and the position of the moon. The moon tends to dictate mood and the collective mood to a great extent. So when the moon is in its happy place in Taurus, everybody is generally in a better mood. When the moon is in its sad place in Scorpio, everybody tends to be a bit more self-critical and grumpy and everything. And just being aware of, where is the moon today? Where is it in relation to the sun? What is the interplay of these energies? How is it affecting how I feel, how everybody around me feels? Again, just helps me to interact more wisely with what's going on. And over time, I start to notice, like, okay, On a full moon, I generally feel great and I want to party. Okay, on a new moon, I generally want to sleep. Just those kind of noticings over time builds up a deeper wisdom, a deeper way of being in the world and knowing what the limits of one's energies are in relation to time and the cycles of time. So, just a little preliminary set of thoughts right there. Furthermore, so it's both pulling the tarot card, noticing the astrology, writing down our dreams, and then reflecting on them each day in the evening practice, and periodically doing full-on dream interpretation with what we've written down of our dreams, which is something that I do more on like a weekly or a monthly basis. We can discuss that more. And so there's that. That's what we're doing. We're staying in touch with these deeper reflections, this sort of ongoing synchronicity and ongoing magic all around us. So if you ever feel like your life is boring or that you're not in connection with something larger than yourself, I highly, highly especially recommend that you begin to do this alchemical journal practice, because you will begin to see very quickly how much synchronous unfolding, how many amazing linkages of symbol and fate are dancing all throughout your existence, and it will begin to give you a sense of wonder and a sense of being on a path, on a journey, and not just wandering aimlessly, because you'll be connecting again the deeper, larger part of you. And then sort of the more practical part of the practice here is we are reflecting on our habits and our actions, and we are choosing ones that carry us towards where we want to go. And gosh, that sounds so simple and so obvious. But how many people do you know who do that consistently every day, who are always reflecting and always moving forward in this manner? I bet not a whole lot. It's a very simple thing, and it's also a giant piece of having consistent, continuous growth and success. Okay, so I think that covers why we want to do this practice. And I want to talk in the next segment briefly about a little more oomph that we can give to it. Okay, so if you decide to do the alchemical journal practice, there's a secret to really having an amazing experience with it, and that is to commit your word to it, and then to do a renewal of my word ritual when you slip up, when you forget, when you don't do it. This is an amazing way to actually stay consistent. So I'll tell you what it involves. First, you commit your word to the practice. And to do that, you just say out loud, I commit to every day doing an alchemical journal practice in the morning and in the evening. And if I slip up, if I forget, I will do a renewal of my word ritual. Okay, period. That's it. You just say that out loud and you have committed yourself to the practice. Okay, next, the renewal of my word ritual. What is that? Well, it's a simple, easy thing to do. So when I slip up with my practice, when I forget to do my alchemical journal, which usually I forget to do the evening practice because I just get tired and busy and I go to sleep and I forget about it, I wake up the next day, and instead of beating myself up like, oh, bad Carolyn forgot to do alchemical journal, instead of doing all that rigmarole, I just do this simple ritual. So the ritual is this. I take 3 coins. I go to the nearest crossroads. I just walk to one in my little neighborhood. Crossroads are sacred to Hermes Thoth, Hermes Trismegistus. I go to the crossroads and I say, Hermes Trismegistus, hear my hail and help me to heal the whole. Please accept this offering and help me to work my will. So after I say the prayer, after I've given the 3 coins, I just turn around and without looking backwards, I walk back to my house. Now, nothing terrible will happen if I look backwards. I won't turn to stone. Not looking backwards is just a way of affirming that I am now moving forward with my practice again, and I'm onward and upwards, right? So that's it. It's a very simple practice, so it means that I never have to beat myself up or feel terrible if I don't do what I've committed my word to. But it means that I acknowledge when I've broken my word, and I make amends, symbolically at least, about it, and I ask for divine help in keeping my word. So this whole matter of keeping our word, renewing our word, committing our word, this is a deep thing in magic, and we can have a whole discussion of what this entails. But right now, just from a general human viewpoint, we can say that it's always a good thing to have integrity and to do what we say we're going to do. It makes us more reliable, it makes us more trustworthy, it makes us respect ourselves. So committing our word to practices that we know are important and that we want to do, and then renewing our word with a simple ritual when we slip up, I think that's a really powerful combination. Lots of people commit themselves to daily practices, but then they don't have something like a renewal of my word ritual. So then once they slip up, either they feel terrible, and they get back on the wagon, but it doesn't feel good, or they just, you're like, well, I guess I can't do that, forget about that, right? And they just let it go, and then they don't advance in the ways that they could advance if they had kept up with the habit. So that's what I really love about the renewal of my word ritual, is it gives room for me to be human, and it also keeps me accountable and keeps me aware and gives me a way to refresh my decision and my commitment. And it's awesome. So these 2 practices, the Alchemical Journal practice and the renewal of my word ritual, these are 2 things that we collectively do in Wealth. Wealth is a virtual community that me and my husband Taya run for leaders and influencers who are interested in coming into their full power via the Hermetic arts. There's a whole lot to Wealth, but I'll just say that something really cool that we do there is that we do these practices together, and it's a whole community. Right now we have about 800 members worldwide who work this way, who commit their word to an alchemical journal, who renew their word when they slip up. And we have one more foundational practice that I'll let it be a little tiny secret. But these 2 foundational practices are really fantastic, and I invite you to do them and to find out what they can give you. And in future episodes in this series, I will have more to say about the subtleties and the ins and outs of things associated with these 2 practices, like more to say about tarot, astrology, dreams, habits, decision-making, keeping our word, all of that good stuff. But I want you to go ahead and just start doing it. I mean, why not? What have you got to lose? This is a really deep, really rewarding practice that puts you in touch with the deeper layers of yourself and also gives you a simple way of, connecting with intention to how do I want to be living my life today? What habits am I cultivating? What decisions am I taking? Or actions am I taking towards my goals? So that's what I'm inviting you to. All right, till next time. Bye-bye.